Greetings, seekers of knowledge. Do you know what are the most disturbing discoveries that the public is unaware of? The night sky is merely an illusion. When you look at a star, it could be 80 million light-years away, meaning that the light from that celestial body took 80 million years to reach Earth. This implies that you're looking at a star from 80 million years ago that possibly no longer exists today. In other words, the night sky we see is a night sky from millions of years ago. What would the sky look like today? There's a theory that if we could invent something to travel faster than the speed of light to reach millions of light-years away in just a few days, weeks, or months, it would be possible to look back at Earth and see dinosaurs walking on the planet. Time travel is real, we simply don't have the advanced technology to achieve it. The world has 70% fewer insects on average than it did 40 years ago. We're truly approaching our silent spring. For those who say there are fewer pests, those aren't the ones we're worried about. Pollinating insects are vital for many crops, so we could soon face serious problems with certain food supplies. In recent years, China has had problems with apple and pear crops, to the point where some regions have had to pollinate crops by hand. Moreover, insects form the lower blocks of many food webs, and their disappearance will cause problems for higher trophic levels. In November 2018, an impact crater from an asteroid or comet was discovered in Greenland due to the melting of ice caps in the area. This crater could be as recent as 12,000 years old, and if that's true, it completely changes our understanding of 1. The frequency of mass extinction events, and 2. The history of human civilization. Suddenly, the myths of global floods, ancient landmarks, pyramids, the Sphinx, and other mysteries align with a world population being wiped out in thousands of years of reconstruction and loss of knowledge. A genetically modified bacterium that could have potentially destroyed many crops and plants was almost commercially released into the environment. Fortunately, a researcher decided to conduct one more test in the laboratory before it was used in production and discovered that it killed all wheat seedlings. The team destroyed the remaining stock. This case demonstrates that we really don't know what we're doing with some of these genetic modifications. The major solar coronal mass ejection apocalypse is thought to occur approximately once every 500 years, if not sooner. It would be powerful enough to destroy Earth's electrical and communication systems for days, months, or even years, affecting power grids, satellites, GPS, internet, phones, transportation systems, banking, and more. The most critical factor would be that the general population wouldn't understand what had happened. The most relevant recent incident was the Carrington event of 1859. In the analog world of that time, it was noted that some telegraph operators continued sending and receiving messages after disconnecting the power sources from their devices. Today, the disruption would be catastrophic in highly unpredictable ways, such as, what would be the results of a pulse of toxins in the global environment after billions of small electrical fires ignite tons of plastic and solder? The total collapse of the distribution network would instantly start a 6-week countdown to a global food crisis. It's concerning that most of the population lacks basic survival skills, and the first thing they would do to get answers would be to check their electronic devices, which wouldn't work. Social chaos could unfold within days. The star Betelgeuse in Orion might be about to go supernova. We know it will become a supernova soon, that's astronomy, as it could be tomorrow or in 200 years. Betelgeuse is a variable star, so it becomes brighter or dimmer all the time, but it became dimmer than ever before. No one is 100% sure what's happening. If Betelgeuse goes supernova, all our satellites and such will be fine, the solar wind will protect us. The main problem is that we won't have night for a while, maybe weeks, which will really confuse animals. The Cascadia subduction zone is due for an adjustment that will cause such a catastrophic earthquake that FEMA considers everything west of I-5 a total loss and only has plans to help those east of the interstate. When the next big earthquake occurs, the northwestern edge of the continent from California to Canada and the continental shelf to the Cascades will drop up to 2 meters and rebound between 30 and 100 feet westward, losing in minutes all the elevation and compression it has gained over centuries. Part of that change will take place beneath the ocean, displacing a colossal amount of seawater. Observe what your fingertips do when you flatten your hand. The water will rise into a huge hill and then quickly collapse. One side will run westward toward Japan, the other side will run eastward in a 700-mile liquid wall that will reach the northwest coast on average 15 minutes after the earthquake begins. By the time the trembling has ceased and the tsunami has receded, the region will be unrecognizable. Kenneth Murphy, who runs FEMA Region X, the division responsible for Oregon, Washington, and Alaska, says, "Our operating assumption is that everything west of Interstate 5 will be toast." Neuroscience research reveals that false memories and our memory are really quite unreliable. In experiments, it's terribly common for a participant to truly believe they remember or experience something that we know with certainty didn't happen. Not only that, but we still don't know exactly how memories are encoded, how our brain decides which ones to keep and which to discard, and why we can remember some things vividly and others not at all. We also don't know whether each memory is stored separately or if different memories converge so you can understand patterns. If you formed a new memory for a soccer ball every time you saw a soccer ball, you wouldn't be able to recognize that it's a soccer ball, for example. Either way, different memories can greatly influence each other, making even the most vivid memories potentially false. For all we know, your mental image of, say, your 7th birthday party could be completely fabricated by your own brain, and you have no way of knowing it. Artificial General Intelligence, AGI, in other words, a digital computer that is superhuman in all cognitive tasks. Humans are imbued by evolution with a kind of general learning algorithm, but it runs on a very slow biological computer with low input-output speed, speaking, thumb typing, reading, etc. Once we can implement that algorithm in silicon, a computer chip, it's very likely to become superhuman within days or less, something like the intelligence gap you might feel between yourself and a mosquito. At that point, it doesn't even have to be malicious to destroy all of humanity. As Max Tegmark has said, the real risk with artificial general intelligence isn't malice but competence. A superintelligent AI will be extremely good at achieving its objectives, and if those objectives aren't aligned with ours, we're in trouble. The implications of this would encompass everything, change the entire game, and many of the best experts believe it could happen within the next 10 years. The overuse of antibiotics has given rise to superbugs that are resistant to antibiotics. At the same time, the diversity of microbes within humans has drastically decreased in first world countries. This leads to a correlative increase in allergies and gastrointestinal diseases. As we use more antibiotics and viral antibacterial products, the biodiversity of microbes decreases, and superbugs have a much easier pathway to invade the body. With a less diverse microbiome, your resident microbes will try to combat these infections much more easily. We need to focus on helping bacteria, not killing them all. In certain regions of Spain that have historically experienced earthquakes approximately every 100 years, there is growing concern. During the last century, taller buildings than ever before have been constructed, but the legal requirements for construction weren't updated to withstand that type of major earthquake. Basically, there are many buildings waiting to collapse under this earthquake, and the problem is mostly ignored. It's one of those low-risk scenarios with a huge bill to fix. Fortunately, new buildings are supposed to be prepared for any seismic eventuality. When we look ever deeper into the universe, dark matter, quantum mechanics, and unified field theory, we always get the same answer: we can't go faster than this, there's a hidden wall. The universe, for lack of a better explanation, has a frame rate like FPS in a video game. Travel faster than that, and the universe can no longer register you cease to exist in this reality's film strip. After further research into this phenomenon, it becomes more eerie that this frame rate is an exact multiple of a hidden frequency in the universe's background radiation. Know anything else that works like that? Computers. Our frame rate might actually be a clock frequency. There's increasing evidence that we're in a simulation, and the reason we'll never have all the answers is because the system is designed to protect itself from this. Many people may be silent carriers of mad cow disease and won't know it for a decade or so. Mad cow disease from the 1980s to 1990s was due to cows being fed the remains of other animals. Then people ate their meat and consumed prion, a protein that can destroy the human brain. Many people are still believed to be prion carriers, but won't know until they begin experiencing symptoms of Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease or bovine spongiform encephalopathy, which can occur between 10 and 50 years after consuming contaminated meat. It has a long incubation period. Prion can also be contracted from blood transfusions, which is why many UK citizens from that period still cannot donate blood. Once symptoms begin, cognitive decline, memory loss, hallucinations, etc., they generally die within months. There is no cure or treatment. The power grid is destined to fail at some point in the near future. Many countries could lose electricity and cell phone signal due to population increase, and power grid technology remains the same, as if something won't break, go wrong, or be hacked. Then thousands, possibly entire continents, would be ruined. It could be fixed in hours or days, or it could even take years, it all depends. Solar power, human power, and backup batteries are recommended. Climate change is much worse than many projections, and we've reached the point where feedback loops have become a real possibility. Many of them haven't been studied enough to rule out a truly catastrophic positive feedback loop of warming. The two big ones are methane release from permafrost or methane hydrates in the ocean. As permafrost melts, there are billions of tons of organic matter that will begin to rot and release methane. Similarly, large amounts of methane are trapped in very cold deep waters as essentially an ice complex with water. Methane is a very effective greenhouse gas. Rising temperatures will release more methane. As temperature rises, oceanic carbon dioxide is released. As temperatures increase, cold water contains more gases. The ocean has absorbed most, about 40%, of carbon emissions, which is what causes acidification from the carbonic acid of absorbed CO2. As ocean temperature increases, the ocean's ability to absorb CO2 will decrease. Eventually, the oceans could release everything instead of acting as sinks. This would cause warming that could release more CO2. Now there is research indicating this probably won't happen if we can keep warming to 2 degrees Celsius, but we're not on track to limit warming to that level. Our immune system is amazing in what it does, but it's also very dangerous. B cells, cells that have the potential to be highly autoreactive, can slip past the cells they're supposed to kill. Immune cells that react spontaneously can cause autoimmunity. To help fight autoimmunity in super important parts of the body, eyes, genitals, brain, etc., these areas become immune privileged. Basically, immune cells cannot enter those areas at all. One of the scariest things is infections that use those immune privileged sites to their advantage. In Ebola survivors, the virus can hide in these sites and reinfect the patient later. In one case, Ebola was in a survivor's eye and caused their eye to change color. In other cases, Ebola was transferred as an STD because it was hiding in a survivor's genitals and transferred to their sexual partner. The Higgs boson, which was hypothesized decades ago, was discovered through the Large Hadron Collider, and its real-life discovery proved that it's what gives everything mass. But there's a non-zero possibility that a Higgs boson could fall to a lower energy state, and due to the law of entropy, it's the preferred state to decay to a lower energy state if possible. The influence of a low-energy state boson would initiate a chain reaction that would cause other Higgs bosons to fall to a lower energy state. The problem with this is that if a Higgs boson falls to a lower energy state, then it can no longer give mass to things, which has universal implications. When mass no longer has mass, it's theorized that the infinitesimal minimum probability of this occurring could lead to a circumstance where the universe as we know it disappears. Essentially, it would occur as an absolute vacuum advancing through the universe, low-energy state Higgs bosons infecting any other Higgs bosons they encounter. Perhaps the most comparable would be imagining a vacuum wave that makes everything in the universe disappear, though only at the speed of light rather than instantaneously. These discoveries and scientific theories constantly remind us how much we still have to understand about our universe and the potential risks we face as a species. Science continues to reveal new perspectives about our reality, some of them truly surprising and, at times, disturbing.